It's time to start solving systems of two equations using graphing. And if you're not a fan of graphing, then don't worry, you will never be solving systems of equations this way ever again. So here's our first example. We need to use this graph to solve this system of equations. Now, a system of equations basically is just a fancy way of saying we have two equations here, and we also have two letters. In a normal equation, you wouldn't be able to solve for two letters. That doesn't make sense. But you can always solve for any amount of letters as long as you have that many equations or more. So since we have two equations, we can solve two letters at once. So the basic idea of this is we're going to go ahead and plot both of these equations on the graph. And wherever they intersect each other, wherever they cross over each other, is going to be where our answer is. So you'll notice that both of these equations are in the form y equals mx plus b. This is the form that you need to graph a line. M is the slope, the slope, and b is the y-intercept. So we can graph both of these equations on the graph immediately. If you're not quite familiar with how to graph a line, I do have a video on it that you can watch on the card. You can watch that first and then come back here, or you can just watch this. I'll quickly review it. So remember that if there's not a number next to x, if x is just by itself, then that means we have like an invisible 1 here. This is another number 1. And because we have minus x here, that actually also means minus 1x. So our slopes are going to be 1 and minus 1. So let's go ahead and graph this line first. We're going to graph the y-intercept first, the plus b. In that case, that's 1. That's going to be where it crosses the y-axis, this big vertical line here. So we need to plot where it crosses the y-axis at 1. So here's 0 right in the middle. We're going to go up 1. So our first point is going to be right here. Then we need to find the slope. Remember, the slope is 1, and slope is rise over run. A number by itself is just over 1. So both our rise and our run are going to be 1. So let's go ahead and plot that. We're going to rise 1 and run 1. So our point is going to be here. And we can do that again if we want to help us draw a straight line. We can rise 1, run 1. So let's go ahead and draw a line through these points from left to right, and we'll have our line. Now, the biggest issue with this is trying to draw a straight line. So that's going to be a challenge. So after like 3 attempts of trying to draw a straight line, here's our line, right? We have the line of y equals x plus 1. So now we need to draw the line of y equals negative x plus 3. So our y-intercept here is going to be 3. So let's go ahead and graph 3 as our y-intercept. We're going to start in the middle and go 1, 2, 3. Here's our point. That is our y-intercept. So now we need to graph the slope. In this case, it's minus 1, and it's not a fraction, so remember that would just be over 1. So in this case, our rise is actually going to be negative 1. A negative rise means we're falling. So we're going to go ahead and fall 1, and then we're going to run 1 also. So we have our point here, and we can do that one more time if we want to get a straight line. Down 1, over 1. So let's go ahead and make another sad attempt of drawing a straight line. Nice, it's even worse than before. So we have our 2 lines here. So the final question to ask is, where do these cross each other? Well, it looks like they cross each other right here. So we need to figure out what are the coordinates of this point. Remember, coordinates are written as x and y. So the x of this point is how far to the right it is. We'll start in the middle, it goes right 1. So the x is 1, and it goes up 1, 2. So the y is going to be 2. So our coordinates are 1, 2. And that's our answer. Our answer is 1, 2. Here's another example. What I'd like you to do is go ahead and pause the video and try this out for yourself, and then unpause and see if you got the right answer. Alright, so we need to graph both of these lines first. And you'll notice here, this equation here is in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. And we can tell that because y in y equals mx plus b is by itself. And y is by itself here, everything else is to the right. But this equation here looks really weird. And that's because y is not by itself in this equation. So we're not going to be able to graph it. So what we're going to do before we do anything else is we are going to get y by itself in this equation so that we can graph it. So the first step of getting y by itself is to get rid of this plus 2. We could get rid of this 2, and that would be fine, but the easiest thing to do in this case would be to get rid of this plus 2, because the 2 is more attached to the y. We'll get rid of that last. So we're going to subtract both sides by 2. On this side, these cancel out, and we're just left with 2y. On the other side, 2x minus 2. This has an x and this doesn't, so you can't really subtract these. So we're just going to leave it as 2x minus 2. So the last step of getting y by itself, remember this is multiplication because there's not a sign in between. So we're going to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. We're going to divide both sides by 2. So on this side, these 2's cancel out, and we're just left with y. And I'm going to move this over because my head is in the way. And on the other side, we are going to divide 2 on both of these parts of the equation. You see, we have a 2x and we have a minus 2. So 2x divided by 2, the 2's would cancel out, and we would just be left with x. And the other side, 2 divided by 2 is 1. But remember, this minus sign needs to stay. So we're going to put minus 1. So our equation is y equals x minus 1. So let's go ahead and replace this equation with our new one. So here's our new equation. Remember, this is equal to the old one, so we can do this. So let's go ahead and graph both of these. Remember that y equals mx plus b is slope-intercept form. So in this case, in our first equation, m, the slope, is going to be 2. And our y-intercept is going to be not 3, negative 3. You've always got to remember these signs. So let's go ahead and graph this. We're first going to start with our y-intercept. We're going to start in the middle, and because it's negative, we're going to go down. 1, 2, 3. And here is our first point. And now we're going to graph the slope. Remember that slope is rise over run. So this is just 2. And anything that's not over anything is just over 1. So we're going to rise 2, and we're going to run 1. So let's rise 1, 2, and then we're going to run 1. So here's our next point. And if you wanted to make this a straighter line, a little more accurate, we could actually do that one more time. So we can rise 2 and run 1. You don't have to do that. It just helps to make a straighter line. So now let's go ahead and fail to draw a straight line. Wow, that was terrible. But here's our line. This is the line of y equals 2x minus 3. So now let's plot the line of not that super confusing equation from before, but one that's equal to it. Y equals x minus 1. Remember that if we don't have a number in front of x, it just means 1. So our slope is going to be 1. And our y-intercept is going to be negative 1, not 1. So let's go ahead and plot our y-intercept first of all. We're going to be going down 1. And now we need to figure out our slope. Slope is rise over run. So our rise is going to be 1. And since it's over nothing, it's going to be over 1. So we're going to rise 1 and run 1. So we're going to rise 1 and run 1. And we can do that one more time if we want for a more accurate graph. Rise 1, run 1. So now let's go ahead and draw a line through this. So here is our line. This is the line of y equals x minus 1, and also the line of that confusing thing we had before. So our final question is, where do these graphs intersect each other? In this case, they seem to intersect right here. So what are the coordinates of this point? Well, remember coordinates are written as x, comma, y. X is how far to the right it is, and y is how high up it is. So in this case, x is 1, 2. It's 2 to the right, and we have to go 1 up. So x is 2, and y is 1. So remember, x always goes on the left, so it's 2, comma, 1. So that's our final answer. The answer to this system of equations is 2, 1. So now you know how to solve systems of equations using graphing. But remember what I said at the beginning about how you'll never be doing this ever again? Well, that's because graphing is actually a pretty slow way of doing it. There's actually a much faster way of solving systems of equations. If you want to learn how to do it, it's called substitution, and you can learn it in this video right here. And as always, if you're confused about anything, you can go ahead and leave a comment with your question, and I'll be sure to answer it. Thanks for watching.